Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, it is the Immortal K of InsaneWeTrust.blogspot.ca. Once again, I shall put a link to my blog in the description. And we've got a bit of an interesting one today. We've got Resident Evil 6, and I completed it earlier today. If you've seen my Doctor Who reviews, my reactions, then you kind of know what to expect from this. I will be spoiling it, but I'm going to say this right now. Nothing terribly big happens. Some stuff with Ada, but nothing terribly big happens, really. But anyway, yeah, like I said, past here there will be spoilers, but again, it's nothing huge. But I'm going to add one more disclaimer to this, which is, if you've kind of already turned your back on the series, just looking at the things and seeing it's too action-oriented or whatever, just don't bother watching this, because don't bother watching this, don't bother playing this. I've been on GameFAQs, and I've been, excuse me, I go on GameFAQs, and I see the top message boards, and I see like half of them are people saying how bad Resident Evil 6 looks, and how bad the critic scores are, and how people are turning on it left and right, and da-da-da-da. And if you've already made up your mind, then you've already made up your mind. No one can change it. I can't change it, no one can. So, if you've already made up your mind, just click end here, and just exit the series. I'm not going to rant too hard on it, but, if you've made up your mind, you've made up your mind. But anyway, what did I think of this one? Well, I did think it was pretty good. Now, this is coming from somebody who's... Okay, maybe I should give a little bit of backstory on this. A couple years and years ago, I first picked up Code Veronica as my first, and I really enjoyed it. And I beat it. The next game I picked up was 4. Really liked it, really enjoyed it. My favorite game in the series is still Code Veronica, though. Since then, I've played 1, 2, 3. I got 5. It was the first game I got on PS3. And I really liked 5. I really liked 4. Yeah, I really liked 5. A lot of people have turned their backs on that one, but I really enjoy it myself. But that's aside the point again. I really like 5. I really like 4. Code Veronica is still my favorite. 2 and 3 I'm not a huge fan of, and I realize that may surprise some people, since 2's... it seems like there's always one game within every series that everyone loves, but I just don't like it that much. Final Fantasy IV, I don't get it myself. Resident Evil 2, same deal. But, no, in terms of that, I really liked 1. 2 not so much, 3 not so much. 4 really liked. Code Veronica's my favorite. 5 I really liked. 6 I really liked. Is it better than 5? By a bit, yeah, I'd say. Is it better than 4 or Code Veronica? Well, it's not better than Code Veronica, as I've said. Again, this is speaking from my opinion. Is it better than 4? No, I don't think. It's better than 5, but it's not quite as good as 4. It is a really good game. It ditches some of the... It kind of deepens combat in the sense that... like, you've seen it where you can, like, roll on your back and shoot. You can slide. You can... there's a lot more... It's a lot more in-depth, and it's a bit faster as well. Like, movement, and... It's a little less, like, if you played 4 and 5 and thought that the combat was a little bit... chunky? I'm not quite sure what the word is. If you thought the combat was a bit, I'm not quite sure what the term is, but if you've ever, if you played them and you just thought, this is good, but the combat system could be a little bit faster, it could be a little more fluid. That's a good way of putting it. Then yeah, Resident Evil 6 is a lot more fluid version of it. So in that sense, yeah, it is better than 4 and 5. It doesn't have quite the same presence as 4. In terms of horror, in terms of the gameplay, yeah, I do think it's better than those two. In terms of the horror aspects and the action aspects, I do think the action is still the most prevalent thing in it, which doesn't bother me. I play Resident Evil games half for the horror aspect, which is a bit diminishing, but it does come back in 6 a lot. Leon's campaign and Ada's campaign has actually probably the single And yeah, by the way, there's obviously the 3 campaigns, and then once you beat all 3 of them, you get Ada's. Ada's campaign has probably the single most horrifying image I've ever seen in a Resident Evil game. I'm not joking. It's. I've never found Resident Evil games scary. I like the atmosphere of horror in them, but I've never found them scary. But yeah, this freaked me out really good. I'm not gonna spoil it, but oh screw it, I might as well. I've already said spoilers. Basically, the thing with Ada is that there's 2 Adas. One of them's cloned using the C virus, the new virus in the game, was used to clone her. Now, it's kind of a long story, and I'm not gonna fully spoil it, but let's just say there's 2 of them. And obviously Ada meets the other Ada, and the other Ada starts mutating, as we all know she would. And she basically turns into a crap ton of, like, gray sludge. And what ends up happening is you're going through this ship, like an ocean tanker. Like an oil tanker, like an ocean liner, like a tanker, some kind of thing like that. Kind of like the one in 5, near the end of 5. But anyway, you're going through it, and basically she's gray slop coming out of the walls, making arms, grabbing for you. It's actually kind of Silent Hilly. Just the atmosphere of it. It was pretty creepy. It was pretty damn creepy. But not just that, like there are faces in the wall, and that is really damn creepy. But that's not even it. The creepiest part is right before the end of that section is there's the hallway, and she blocks it off by making this gigantic slanted like face that is, it's the most horrifying thing I've ever seen in a Resident Evil game by a long shot. Like, I thought the regenerators were a bit creepy in 4, and you know there were certain things, you know, Lost in Nightmares, the DLC for 5 was fairly creepy, but my God, I literally had to like, I didn't drop the controller, but I just kind of like stared at it for a few seconds, just like, oh my God. It was really friggin' creepy. Like, I was really, really spooked out. It was, you know, props to them. And there were quite a few puzzles in Leon and Ada's campaigns. Were they as good as like Resident Evil 1 or 2? No. Not even close. But they were trying. And I think that's the kind of the thing with this game, is that Capcom's really trying to both continue on with the series as it is from 5 and 4, and try to give the old school fans something to chew on. And I do think that they try it. Does it work? Kind of. Like I said, Chris's campaign and the new character Jake Mueller's campaign are both very action-oriented, to the point where there's like quite a few different vehicle sections and stuff like that. And you know, you can groan at that, you know, the horror's gone or whatever. To me, I've never seen Resident Evil as a full horror franchise, anyway. Even from the first game, like I said, I've never found anything in a Resident Evil scary, really. Like, there are a few things I found kind of creepy, and obviously the face in 6, like I said, but I've never found it that scary, so maybe that's kind of why it didn't affect me as much. Maybe that's it. But it never bugged me. The whole action build-up in the recent games, and less horror. Maybe that's why. But, and the fact that I'm a really big fan of, like, cheesy action stuff. Like, the cheesier the better. I think that's actually why I really liked 1 so much, was because it had action, it had some horror. But my God, was it cheesy. I mean, do I even need to quote Barry Burton to, you know, say it? It was cheesy as hell. 5 was cheesy as hell. I think that's why I like that so much. You know, do I need to quote Wesker from that? But, you know, I think that's what I really like about the series, is the action, the horror. I think that's the thing, is it's an action game that has horror that has a horror as a subgenre. Like, it's got action up front and then horror kind of as a side thing, just to give it a little bit more flavor. That's how it's always appeared to me, so maybe that's why that kind of thing never bugged me. But I might have gotten off on a bit of a tangent there. But, you know, are the puzzles as good as they are in 2 and 3? No, but they're trying. There's some decent puzzles, and I was stuck on a few of them in Ada's. Ada's campaign's really good, by the way. Ada's campaign's really good, as is Leon's. Chris and Jake. Jake's campaign was pretty good. In fact, it had probably my favorite moment in the entire game, which was fisticuffing this... I think its name is Ursatonic. Something in some other language. Basically, Mecha Nemesis. That sounds really stupid, but you know what I mean. You ended up fist fighting him, and it's pretty badass. You know, there's some really cool moments in that one. Chris's campaign's probably... Okay, this is one thing I actually want to go on about for a second. The final bosses and the companions with each. The final boss in Leon's campaign makes sense. The final boss in Ada's campaign makes sense, but it could have been something else. Let's just keep it that way. I'm not going to spoil everything. But, but yeah, the final boss in Leon's campaign makes sense. The final boss in Ada's campaign made sense, even though it could have been better. The final boss in Chris's campaign came out of fucking nowhere and means absolutely nothing. Basically looks like a giant skeletal version of Squidward Tentacles from SpongeBob SquarePants. In fact, the entire time I ended up calling him, I think Squidward Tennis Balls is what I ended up calling him. If you've seen the show, you know the joke. I just quoted SpongeBob. I think I need to go out for some air. But, no, that didn't make that much sense. And obviously we all know, you know pretty much from the start who the final boss from of Jake's is. You know, the first time you run into... It's a Ratonic. Or Ursatonic, or whatever the flying shit his name is. And the other... So, you know, some of the bosses made sense, some of them came out of nowhere. So in that aspect, you know, it could have been better, but it could have been worse. And on the other side of it, we've got the companions, which... Jake and Sherry Birkin from 2, which I really liked, bringing her back. Jake and Sherry was pretty good. Ada by herself. Chris and Pierce Nevins, I think his name is. Yeah, Pierce means absolutely fucking nothing. He's just tacked in. It could have been Sheva, which I think would have been a hell of a lot better. Could have been Jill. Could have been Claire. Fuck. You know, I realized they wanted to go someone BSAA, but again, Sheva. And as for Leon and Helena, I think her name is. Again, I like Helena more than Pierce, but not by much. They're both pretty pointless in the long run. And if I never saw either one of them again, I'd be perfectly happy. Jake I like. You know, he actually turned out to be a pretty good character in the long run. You know, he had decent character development, and he was pretty good. You know, I thought he was fairly likable. And apparently, whatever they're doing next might involve him due to the after-credits thing with in Ada's campaign. So apparently, like, if next DLC or Resident Evil 7 might involve Jake heavily. Which I'd be fine with. But, no, like I said, how do I feel about the game? I like it. I like it quite a bit. It's... You know, I bought it opening day, and I don't regret a damn thing. You know, will I get DLC for it? Sure. Also, before I say anything else, Mercenaries, pretty good. Only 3 stages. If you're a fan of Mercenaries, then you'll know that. They're only 4 and 4, but you know, 3. I would have liked some. I would have liked some more. And as for the other mode, which is Agent Hunt, really fun, but it might have some problems. I tried it earlier. I had some small connection issues, and not to mention the fact that there was... It just seems like sometimes you would spawn and you can't get out of the area, or you can't get to where the survivors are. Agent Hunt, by the way, is the mode where you take control of like zombies or something in someone else's campaign and you try to attack them. It's a really cool mode. And when it gets working, it's actually really fun. But, like I said, it just has some problems. But anyway, my final thoughts, I enjoyed the game. Do I think it's worth $60? Yeah. You know, if you don't want to wait, if you don't want to spend that much, you know, wait for the price to go down for a bit. But no, I really enjoyed it. But anyway, once again, I am the Immortal K of InsaneWithTrust.blogspot.ca. Victory of the Daleks is the name on the YouTube channel. And I shall see you gentlemen later.